Hey everyone, I'm your host, Robbie Strazynski, and thanks so much for joining us on episode number 27 of CardsChat, the friendliest poker podcast in town. Today, we welcome Fintan Hand of Team PokerStars Online. Widely known by his online poker screen name, EasyWithAces, Fintan is one of our game's most popular Twitch streamers. He's also a podcaster and, of course, a professional poker player. On this show, we'll be getting to know the man behind the screen name, discuss some of his biggest wins, some rougher patches, and his climb towards the top of the poker Twitch world, and more. Fintan, welcome to the Cards Chat podcast.
I nearly interrupted you because I thought you were about to say, welcome to the friendliest poker player. And I was like, I don't know if you can start with that. I might not be known as the friendliest poker player. I try to be nice, but sometimes I call people out on Twitter and I get in trouble. So that might be a fair reflection.
Well, that's actually a good way to start. I kind of like a little bit of a disclaimer, towards anyone who's listening or watching. Of all of the guests we've had so far, I mean, this is episode number 27. I think you're the first person with whom I've never actually communicated or spoken with directly before. So this is a nice, refreshing thing for me. I like meeting new people, and I think it's going to be fun and interesting getting to know you for the first time.
Yeah, I've obviously I follow you on Twitter, I'm pretty sure, and
Yep.
I do see that you're obviously very active in the community, a very positive voice in the community. So when I was given the opportunity to sit down and have a chat, how could I say no to Robbie?
That's very kind of you. I appreciate that, and the checks in the mail. Excellent. Okay. So, of course, this is a poker podcast. So let's talk about some of your results from the past year. 2020 was a year of both highs and lows for you, but we'll start off on the highs. Including it was the highest point of your career, I believe, when you won the $1,050 scoop event for 74K. You beat Antoine Saout heads up. What was that like? How did it feel? And did it impact your play going forward after such a big win, and maybe also your stream?
I don't, but at the moment, it was very intense. Obviously, the scoop events take place over a number of days. I believe that was just a 2-day event, but it just feels so surreal. It's one of those moments that when I was younger, I always dreamed about. And I know that's a cliche, and I know it was F tops and scoop. Like those were the things that I cared about. I am not a massive lover of live poker. I love the community events. Like when Lex Live comes back, I will be going for the entirety. I love it getting to meet people, but I've never done the Vegas thing. Like I've never wanted to go over and spend 6-7 weeks in Vegas. That just does not appeal to me. So online poker tournaments, high events, scoops, and F tops were just what I always dreamt about. So to have that moment in front of, I don't know what it was, somewhere between 15 and 20,000 people,
Yeah.
it just felt completely surreal. And I made a joke before scoops started that I would win a scoop by clicking call any check, which is an absurd way to like win any poker tournaments, like to win any poker hand. And I just got what I believe was a very good situation. And Antoine, I think, made a value shove with ace high against me in a very unusual spot. And I just had the bottom pair and, bottom pair. It was a full house. It was the bottom full house.
Right.
Called it off, and then I just remember losing it. Like all the adrenaline, all the intensity was in that one moment, and I don't know, it was so cool. I just called my mom, called my dad live on stream, and
Yep.
it wasn't anything to do with the money. Not that winning $74,000 is not incredible and a huge amount of money, but just winning a trophy in a high event in Scoop. Like every single one of those events has the best players in the world. There's no soft 1Ks that are small fields. You got to beat like really, really good players. There's another player that came third called Pawn Diddy, who is one of the poker players that like I admire the most. He's crazy aggressive. He has kind of just burst on the scene in the last couple of years, and he plays the high roller. So to be battling with them, I had a hand probably, I think 3 or 4 handed where I bluffed Pawn Diddy, and he folded top pair to me, and we had a history of him like owning me in the 530 Benny Builder, making some wild calls with ace high for like 150 big blinds. And then I just love because I haven't got my green screen yet here in Malta, but I had the green screen there, and I just get in the DJ boot and I'm dancing around. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, it's just a scene in a green screen, and it's like a virtual DJ. You're in a club, And like he has to, because everyone's watching me when you're
Right.
deep in such a big tournament. So I know like I've bluffed him. And then like this sick poker player has to tune into my stream and watch me dance around like an idiot and just like like I can only imagine that at that moment in time they hate me. Like they have to. Like you've been bluffed and there's 15,000 people laughing at you and dancing along with me, having a rave to pump it up. And what is love when we could listen to actual music on Twitch? So yeah, it was an incredible moment. I don't know if it'll ever be topped because obviously I can win more money.
Right.
Maybe if I won a W Coop main or a Scoop main, you know, for like £1,000,000 or whatever. But in terms of if I won like 250K and won another W Coop or a Scoop, like I don't think it would be as good.
There's nothing
Like
like the
you
first.
you chase that high and you just won't get it again.
Amazing. Did you do
So
anything to splurge with those winnings?
Yeah, I had a wild evening. So my fiance went out and I went and I got a box of crunchy nut cereal and ate it all on my own in one sitting and got really sick. And then went to bed and played Scoop again the next day. So that was that was pretty intense.
Oh,
Like
boy.
I have no balance in my life. So I love cereal, I love sweets.
Okay.
I'm very sweet, but I don't ever have them in my house because I can't control myself. So yeah, I never have stuff like that. And to celebrate, I just went and got the crunchy nut and sat there and just ate it all.
I think a one-off is
Crunchy Nut.
okay. It's important
Yeah,
to let
yeah,
loose
yeah.
once in a while.
Yeah,
In the wake of such a big win, did you start playing higher? Or you kind of sort of kept things balanced and did what you were doing until then, stakes-wise?
well, I was playing higher, but there was obviously an inflated number of series last year due to the
Sure.
pandemic, and obviously PokerStars and all the other competitors were trying to, get their market share, and they were trying to, make sure that there was something on offer at all times, and it was very intense. But there was a stadium series which consisted of many 5Ks, but PokerStars bought me into the 5Ks. So whilst it might have looked like I had started playing higher, PokerStars gave me tickets. I'm always very vocal about that. Like I don't sell any action. I don't really swap with anyone except for in that Scoop that I won. Me and Sprague have had one swap in the last 2 years and he had 10% of that, which by the way, I'm pretty sure was his biggest score last year, but we don't need to talk about that.
Well, we'll mention Mr. Sprague a couple times.
He had a big score in the stadium series. I'm only joking.
Yep.
But yeah, so I played a bunch of 5Ks and we had reasonable success in them. I got, I think, 1/3. I final table bubbled one that Sprague actually got third in himself.
Yep.
So I was obviously playing those tournaments, but I wasn't buying into those tournaments, right?
Got it.
What I did do was play a couple of 2Ks that maybe I wouldn't have played, but I went on a pretty big heater, and the way I like, I don't play those tournaments really thinking that I'm making money, and it's just an investment for the stream. So
interesting.
I don't think I'm losing like 50%,
Right.
But if I'm losing 10% and I get to play a 2K and it costs me $200 to play that tournament in EV or whatever, and then I potentially have a big run, like that's what brings in the numbers.
Right.
Now, you got to be somewhat careful because I don't own a house, I don't have any property, and so I can't just always be firing high stuff because at some point it will become reckless. But when I was on a heater and I was studying a lot, I was working with BBZ like all the time. He made me go from definitely weak reg to like reasonable reg. Like I'm not deluded. I don't think I'm one of the best poker players in the world. I'm not even close. I'm not fit to brush their shoes or anything. But like to compete and on your day have that moment, like I got to that level where it was going to happen a little bit more often for me than it would have in previous years. So I was full of confidence and I just took a gamble. And obviously, it didn't go as well towards the second half of 2020, but it was still the best year I ever had poker wise. Like I had a big swing in there, but I had a big December to like turn it around a bit. And, it was still a very good poker year for me. So whilst there was some ups and downs, overall, like no complaints for me.
I have to say, I really appreciate your candor. You're speaking very openly. No, it's as a poker player, a lot of home game players, we get asked, upon coming home, so how'd you do, honey? Even that we don't necessarily want to answer with a straight face, but you're really putting it out there. And that's something I think a lot of recreationals appreciate from a professional player. There's no cutting corners, like this is how it was, this is how I bought in, this is how I did. And yeah, like I like also very refreshing the way you look at how you buy in, that it's much more about the stream and
Absolutely.
entertaining your audience than necessarily like, the plus a couple K, minus a couple K on the bankroll.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I study a lot and I try not to drift too far away because when you're streaming, it's very intense. And if you want to be towards the top of the directory, like unless you're Lex, who can, this is I should take the back. Lex streams a hell of a lot,
Yeah.
but if Lex was to take a big break, Lex has the capability to take that break and come back and still crush. Whereas if you're anybody else, you pretty much only win through consistency. So you just don't get to take breaks. Like Sprague's been streaming for 5 years without really stopping. I've been streaming for 5 years without stopping. Pav's been in there for, I think, 5 years without stopping. Matt Staples, 5 years without stopping. Obviously, Kmart and Jamie have been around a long time, but they took breaks and they suffered for it. So
Yeah.
they've obviously now they're both back on the grind and they're starting to see the growth again. But if you take those big breaks, you're just not going to stay at the top. So it's hard to do that and also put a lot of time into studying poker, because streaming is exhausting. If you stream 50 hours a week, you don't want to sit down and study for 2-3 hours a day when you're done. And the best regs in the world that are at the top, they play poker and they study poker.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about answering emails and getting the joy of doing podcasts. No, like but you know what I mean? They just don't have that stuff. So they're playing it, on a different field. So like if you want to keep up with them, you need to study hard. So like I do want to be a professional poker player, and I have seen my results get better and better over the years. And I want to continue going that way. But I think the reality is like I'm a professional streamer. Like that's the most important thing. So I think they come hand in hand, but I do agree with you that like my first goal is to entertain the stream and have fun on the stream, and then be a professional poker player.
I like it. And of course, you did mention Spraggy. It's Benjamin Spragg. For those who are unfamiliar, you touched upon very briefly that tournament where both of you were, in the final 10. I think you made 10th place in the 5200 Stadium Series main event. Spraggy did finish there. You're correct. But, just in saying, take a step back from that. Both of you guys started, battling in the 550 events. I'm talking $5.50. You've come quite a long way. What does it feel like, to have made that journey, look back and see it's, sincerely very humble roots you guys came from, and you're both now, really at a much higher level.
So whilst that's not wrong, that's 100% true. The trajectory, like, and the time frame, I feel is a little off, because before I streamed, I did play reasonably higher stakes.
Okay.
And I concentrated just on poker. But then when I started doing the Fintan and Spraggy show, which was myself and Benjamin on the PokerStars Central channel, it was that was the toughest 6 months I had of poker ever, because you're streaming with someone and you have to talk to them constantly, and one person is in charge of the show each day, and they have to control the table. So it's just like you don't have a time to think about your decisions. So I dropped my stakes down considerably at that time. That was like the biggest drop off I ever had. Sure. And then so in a way then I did rise back through, but it kind of more coincided with when me and Sprague stopped streaming together that I started to have more poker success again. And that's like it's probably the same with Sprague. It's just quite hard to do your thing and be constantly talking to someone and worrying about where their tables are. Like there's no efficient system. Like if Sprague's playing 6 tables, I have to have Sprague 6 tables open, my 6 tables open. And every time he gets moved on a table, which happens a lot in online poker, you've got to go search it. You got to go get it back. So I feel like I didn't start at $5 tournaments when Star signed me, is what I'm trying to basically say. But yeah, I think it's important to enjoy the moments that you have. And I definitely think it's important to appreciate where you are, because there's definitely a point when I started playing poker. I started with $2 180 tournaments. That if you told me I would ever be winning a $1,000 tournament, I just literally would not have believed you. The idea of having $1,000 in my poker account was madness. Never mind entering into $1,000 tournaments without selling any action. So yeah, it's been a fun journey. I'm 30 years old now. playing full time since I was 22. So I definitely think that you need to sit back and appreciate that, where you are now was probably your dream at some point, and it's easy to get bogged down with the negativity if it's not going exactly how you want. But it's never just a straight line up. Like, nobody just gets to the bottom and just like runs up a hill and never goes down. Like, it just comes in ups and downs. So yeah, I definitely do appreciate it. I realize how incredibly lucky I am to do what I do, and I don't ever take it for granted. Like, I actually don't.
Well, I mean, it's a good attitude to have, and yeah, I mean, to point, I did say I was going to ask you about the other side of that poker spectrum. I know you post a lot on Instagram, so I'll just narrow it down for you. I'll tell you exactly what you wrote on this one.
Problem.
It was a very open, honest, a heartfelt post. You talked about how disappointed you were after W Coup. Some of the things you said, you felt little enjoyment, you struggled to show up every day, the biggest downswing of your career. I mean, obviously that, you're not someone who's just, robotic and emotionless. You really wear your heart on your sleeve. And maybe, can you take us back to the day you wrote that, like your mind frame and that, that disappointment and just putting it all out there? Why did you decide, and what do you feel you gained perhaps from putting it all out there like that? Again, the other side of, those joyous moments, it could be, down in the doldrums a bit.
So I send a weekly email to my stream, not to my stream, to those who've signed up to the email list. And I'm very open about everything on that email list. I don't often post long form Instagram posts because I don't know if my friends who followed me since I was younger want to be reading long form Instagram posts. And I don't know if, people that just want a little bit of enjoyment from a poker clip want to be reading long form posts. But every now and then, like, I just want to be honest with how things are going. And obviously last year was a tough year for a lot of people. Like, from a personal level, things went well financially and streaming was good. But the world was in disarray. Not a lot of people were probably, where they wanted to be. Plans got destroyed. It just, I don't need to talk about the pandemic. Everyone knows exactly how it went for them. But I think being honest in those situations, when if people look from the outside, if I don't tell people I'm on a downswing, they won't know. Like, they've seen that I won $74,000 and people think that lasts forever. Like, I buy in for like whatever, I don't know, $20,000 a week or something. Wow. So like when I'm playing, and that's like not during the series. During the series, it's like inflated incredibly more than that. And last year there was a lot of series. So maybe at the moment it's about 15 grand a week or something. But that's that's 74 grand doesn't last long if you don't win a lot. And we were meant to get married in September. I was meant to have my 30th birthday with my friends and family, and I had told PokerStars in advance that I would not be playing in that W Cube. And then I played it in anyway, and I just felt that my heart wasn't in it, and I didn't turn up. I didn't want to stream, and I love streaming and I love playing poker, and like I always want to stream and I always want to turn up. It was the first time in my, I guess, streaming career that I didn't want to stream. So I just wanted to be open with people and let them know. I did think that last year, everyone who streams poker streamed so many hours and there was so many series and it was just so intense that everyone needed, like, at some point have a fall off. And if I'm being completely honest, that was just before I went home to Ireland in October from Malta. October we were moving, getting set up. Then November, my internet was having terrible issues. December was Christmas and seeing some family. And then January, the internet got so bad that I decided to leave Ireland again and move back to Malta. So I probably haven't got back fully into the groove of streaming since then. And that's like a 6-month period or 5-month period, which is a long time. But I've just got back to Malta 2 days ago with my family. And I'm hoping that, no internet issues and just get to stream because it's what I like doing. But I just think it's natural to have the ups and downs. When I share something like that, I'm never in a bad place or anything like that. Like, I would go talk to someone professionally if I ever felt I needed to, rather than putting it on the internet and hoping it's going to make things better. It's just being honest that things aren't always rosy, because I think it's easy as a streamer to just try and make things look better. It's what people do of my generation. They post their highlights on Instagram, but they never talk about anything that's, a a low light. And then, suicide in my generation is rampant. So I just want to maybe bring awareness to that. You can talk about things that aren't great as well.
I think that's so important. Like I said it before, I'll say it again. Your candor is incredibly refreshing, and I certainly agree. It's I remember, I think it was a Nike campaign. Maybe it was Sprite. No, it was Nike. Image is everything. With the old, from back in the day with Andre Agassi, and very much, very often you see, okay, someone's raking in a huge pot, but poker players know the question you're supposed to ask is, but how much did you lose? It's not it's not always so simple. And you did touch upon that very important plan that you had to postpone your wedding. At what point did you sort of make that decision? And
early.
Yeah, right away.
Early. I just knew there was no chance. I know everyone. I'm naturally very pessimistic, but not in a like I bring people down and want to make people feel bad. Like I like to make people feel good, bring them up, but I just believe that planning for the worst is the best way to go, and it drives my fiance mad at times. I just like to think, what's the worst that could happen so that we're prepared for it. But I don't have faith in a lot of things to do well, so I didn't think that the governments were gonna like have things back open and sorted. So obviously the pandemic officially got closed down. We got into lockdown in Malta and Ireland in March. I'm not sure what the timelines of other countries are, but I assume they're all quite similar.
Yeah.
And then just in April, I just said there's no way that people are going to be able to get everything organized. Currently we're all locked down. I also didn't want to be putting financial pressure on people, because I was having a wedding in Malta. I didn't know how long people were going to be out of work. And I didn't want anyone who has an elder person in their family, or anyone who has, potentially underlying health issues, to have to travel to Malta under peer pressure for me. I don't like a big deal being made about me at all. So it just happened to coincide with my 30th birthday, because we wanted to get married in September because it's the best month weather-wise in Malta, because it's not too hot, but it's not too cold.
Yeah.
So that I just didn't want to be people going out of their way to do something they're uncomfortable with. So we just pulled the plug early. So that was that.
And we're going to see maybe a double wedding, with Spraggy and Marley, and then yourself and Hannah. Is that in the cards?
Absolutely no chance. No. I mean, I love Spragg and I love Marley. I think they're a fantastic couple. I think Marley could not be better suited to Benjamin. She keeps him on his toes, and Benjamin's one of the, quickest witted, funniest people I've ever met. But the only person that can watch him make him crumble under a response is Marley. Like, she will put him down incredibly well. So as much as I love them, I have absolutely no intention of having a Siamese twin joined at the hip wedding with Benjamin Spragg. Also, given the state of the clothes he wears and the and the graphics he uses, I fully expect that to be some 80s porn star high Vegas neon lighted wedding. Like, I'm not in for that. Hannah would murder me. Apologies for cursing. I just got a little bit into the flow and I just couldn't help it. Spraggy just brings that out of me. So if you want to have a complaint, I'd send it to Spragg.
It's all good. It's important to be true to yourself, and that's one of the reasons the community wanted you on, Fintan. Of course, let's go. So let's change gears a little bit. It's important to do that in poker. Let's go back to streaming. Of course, you've worked your way up from humble beginnings, from just one viewer. Now, you say you're, having sessions of 15, 20,000 people watching you.
No. Okay. Whoa. I might be having a session or two of 15 or 20,000 people. That is certainly not a fair reflection of what I'm cranking out on a daily. But yes, if the highest moments can potentially be that high, but on average, it'll be a couple of thousand or 1,000 depending on the day.
Okay. Well, we do have a quote, though, from your fellow streamer, Kevin Martin. He called you among, quote, the big three of poker streaming, along with Lex and Spraggy. How does it feel to hear that, and how important is it to you to reach the top of that ladder?
It's not really about reaching the top of the ladder for me. And I know this will sound cliched, but I can't really control whether people want to watch me or not. Like, I just can't. I can do what is true to me. I haven't got it in me to be fake on the stream. I just am who I am. And if people don't enjoy it, I can't control it. So I have no control over whether I'm in the top three. All I can do is put in a lot of hours and show up and be myself and hope people enjoy it. I think, factually speaking, like me, Sprague, and Lex were the top 3 streamers over the last couple of years. But given the last couple of months, I haven't streamed in a week. I have barely streamed consistently for 2 months. So at this moment in time, like, that statement might not be true. I will get back up there. I think if I work hard and do what I do and just show up and have results, I think I'll be thereabouts in that conversation. But at this moment in time, like Lex and Spraggy, Lex was always ahead of us. But a year ago or in 2020, I probably was like very closely tied to Sprag. But at the moment, he's been just streaming nonstop, and he's getting the growth he deserves. He's an incredible streamer, in my opinion, the funniest streamer, without question. I don't think anyone really comes close in the poker directory, and his content's amazing. So he's pulled away a little bit, but I'll just work hard and get back on it, and I will be in the conversation. But whether I'm top 3, top 5, like, I can't control that. So I don't waste energy on things like I can't control.
Right. Well, obviously, the consistency is probably the number one most important thing as far as Twitch streaming. But is there any, just like poker players, of course, always work on their game, they get in the lab, they study. Are there any particular strategies that you have or do or wish that you want to employ to keep growing that audience beyond just the simple consistency?
Do you mean myself, or like as a general
tip
for people? I believe that one thing that the poker community lacks and suffers as a consequence is we don't naturally work together. We're kind of lone wolves, and we are, we're playing a zero-sum game where, if someone, like, if you win, someone's got to lose. Like, that's the reality. So I think we're naturally inclined to not look to work together. But I believe if poker streamers did more collaborations and brought people in from other games, and of course there can be regulation issues, you got to be careful with who you're bringing in and what audiences and stuff like that, but if everything gets cleared, I think there's a lot of opportunity to bring more eyes onto poker and just have fun. It's nice to mix it up. The problem can be that sometimes, if I have a streamer on who's not Sprague, not Lex, like, your numbers can suffer short term, but I think long term, if you mix with more people, it's somewhat the way the chess community has. Like, if you look at the chess growth, they work together so much. They're streaming together, doing sub battles together, they're doing commentary together on each other's channels. Like, I've never been on Lex's channel. I've rarely been on Sprague's channel. They've never been on my channel, really. We've had some moments where me and Sprague have done a collaboration off the PokerStars Central, but unless PokerStars really organizes an event, like, we do so little together. Now, Sprague has Parker on sometimes, Tonka P, the streamer, and Lex and Sprague play some games together. But even Lex and Sprague are super good friends, and I don't think they've ever done a poker stream together. So I just think that if we all grow, it helps everyone. It can be a small-minded approach that some streamers and people have, that they don't want to help other streamers. But I had Team ATB, which was 6 small streamers I tried to grow and bring together, and it didn't really work out for different reasons, but I still try to support them, and I've always tried to help the smaller streamers coming through, because I really think poker is a real niche game in terms of the market share on Twitch. Like, we don't have as many eyes on us that we potentially could, and I think the only way we're going to do that is if Lex goes from having 5k average to 15k average, and that brings Sprague up from 2k average to 4k average, and everybody comes up a little bit. So it's easy in the Twitch world to look at it because it's very much king of the hill. Like, if you're not at the top of the Twitch directory, it's very hard for discoverability. Like, it's very tough. But if everyone can work together, it will bring more eyes on it. And then, when Lex goes offline, some of those people, they like poker, they got to watch people. If Sprague goes offline, people got to watch. So I think we could do a better job of growing together and doing collaborations. And I think, it's something that I'm hoping to start in March. I'm going to start having guests on from outside the poker world, but I also will do, maybe if I can get Sprague, Lex, Parker, whoever together for a home game from time to time, because when the PokerStars do it, it's always a big success.
Sure. Well, that's a nice idea. I wish you much success with it. Obviously, beyond the stream, you do have a very nice partnership with Sprague. How do you refer to Benjamin, Sprague? What's your pet name for him?
Benjamin.
Benjamin. Okay.
If I'm in person, it's Benjamin. If I'm talking about him online, it's Spraggy.
Okay.
Because I think most people would know him as Spraggy.
Right.
But if I see him in person, it would be Benjamin for sure.
Okay, good. Mr. Marley, we'll go with that. So you do a podcast with him together. I believe you call it football. The rest of us Americans call it soccer.
We did do a podcast. We did 6 episodes and it died. Me and Sprag have the greatest of plans. And the way we got originally recognized by Stars was a podcast called Off the Rails. Okay. Many years ago. They seen that podcast. They liked the rapport we had. They liked the way we bounced off each other. So they asked us to work together and do PokerStars Central, and that's kind of how that started. And then we were streaming together 25 hours a week minimum, and we just like, look, we can't do a podcast together as well. In that 18-month period, I'm not sure if 2 human beings in the world talked more words to each other. I'm 100% serious. When you're on, like, a radio show does ads, radio show does music, radio show does breaks, has guests, has segments. We were just,
nonstop
5 days a week without stopping talking. I was honestly trying to work it out. I was like, what do humans talk more? Like, because when you're in a relationship, you'll talk for a little bit but you're sitting there on your phone, you're not talking to each other all the time. Like, even these people working from home for the last, whatever it's been, 13 months or 12 months, probably haven't been talking as much as me and Sprag talked then. It was relentless. So we just were no way doing a podcast together. And then we were like, all right, we've had our little break from each other. Well, let's go again. And then 1 week, Sprag was living in Dublin for 3 months, and he moved back to the UK on the day we were due to record the podcast.
Oh, wow.
And then we just never did it again. He just didn't show up that one day. And then I think neither of us really were fully committed to it. I think people enjoyed it and people want us to do stuff together, but it's really tough being on someone else's schedule when it's every week. I think I understand, a lot of people live their life that way and have to be in meetings at certain times on certain days. But when you're like, Sprag will just start streaming at 4 a.m. some days. The man can't keep a schedule. So then if he's like an hour late, or if I'm an hour late and then the other person's waiting, you're just ruining things. So we just nipped it in the bud. We will, I'm sure, make some sort of content again together down the line. But for now, Only Fools and Scores, the football/soccer podcast, is dead.
I hear you. Well, I mean, they say about, it's more common these days. You have these limited series, just 4 episodes or 6 episodes, and then you just move on to the next project. And that's okay. It doesn't always have to be a 9 or 10 season run. So there are lots of different types of enjoyable content out there.
Try our best.
For sure. I mean, you mentioned when PokerStars first discovered you, when they signed you, what's that feel like to be, reached out to by, the famous Red Spade? Hey guys, you want to come and work with us and represent the brand? What's that feeling, and what does it mean to you to be a representative of that brand?
Well, I always just wanted to work with PokerStars. That was, if Full Tilt was still around to the same degree as it was before everything went a little bit dicey and not so legal, then yeah, sure, I probably would have wanted to be with Full Tilt. I was obsessed with the rail heaven, like everybody was. Tom Dwan, the Phil Ivey, the Victor Dwan, I was just obsessed. But once PokerStars was the market leader and, in my opinion, the best site, and I only played on PokerStars before I signed with Stars. Now that's not to say I've never played on other sites. I did, but as a streaming product, PokerStars just gets more eyes on it. People enjoy it. The software is good. The security is good. Everything's just like solid, and there's nothing dicey going on or untoward, and I just always felt it was the company I wanted to work with. So other companies reached out to me, ones you can obviously most likely guess, don't need to name, and I didn't want to work with them, and I was going to give up streaming when Kmart got signed instead of me for PokerStars, because I just saw, like, here's the thing, right? Yeah, now me and Spraggy and Lex are as Kmart put it, 3 of the bigger streamers. But at the time, Lex wasn't really streaming. There was no Spraggy. There was no UK people really that were UK, Ireland, European, I should say. It was North Americans. It was Jake Carver. It was Jamie Staples. They had just signed Kmart. So like I swear a lot. I've toned it down. I'm not like a preppy North American goody two shoes that can like, just turn on a personality that I don't think, in some people is real on a stream. Like that's just not me. So I thought, look, I just obviously don't fit the profile. Like I'm done. Like this is just not going to happen, because the reason I got into streaming was when Jamie signed with Stars. I was like, all right, well, they're not just signing the best poker players in the world anymore. They're signing people who create content and stream.
Sure.
Because no offense to Jamie, he would admit it the same way as I would. He's not a great poker player, right? That's just facts.
Yep.
So I was like, they're going in a different direction, right? So I was like, oh, there's a potential there. And then my boss, who I love dearly, messaged me prior to us signing, or prior to me signing, and said, look, we've been keeping an eye on you. We went with Kmart now, but if you keep doing what you're doing, we would be interested down the line. So I wasn't, I was going to quit. Like I was just going to be done, because
Wow.
I know some people call it like selling out when you get signed by a company, but I don't know what people expect. Like I think that's one of the biggest achievements you can get as a streamer. Like you're getting recognized by a company, you're getting help support you on your journey. I I I don't get it when people like call it selling out for that. Like that was why I wanted to do it, that's why I wanted to stream. So yeah, when they offered me the chance to sign, like I was ecstatic. The opportunity to do it with Sprague, who I'd become close with, was great. And yeah, like I said, it's just who I always wanted to work with. Like I know some people will disagree, but I personally still think that they're the number one company in the world. And if me, Sprague, and Lex wanted to go to another company, I'm sure like we potentially could. So I think that speaks enough that we're still all at Stars.
So what does it mean to you to represent PokerStars? Like when someone says, oh, this is Team Online, Team PokerStars Online, it's Fintan Hand. What does that mean to you to hold that responsibility?
Well, I honestly fell in love with poker when I was 16 years old. My friends were playing in school, didn't know what it was. I'd always been obsessed with the idea of being able to make money without a traditional job. I used to buy sweets in the cafeteria and sell them for markup when the shop closed and stuff. I was always obsessed with finding a way that wasn't, a traditional route. And then when I found this game poker, and people are like, oh, it's a skill game. It's not luck. If you play and study enough, you will get good. So I just became obsessed, and it's all I did for years and years. I worked in a casino. So I just love poker, and I truly believe that it's one of the greatest games ever invented. I think that, chess is great, but if I'm better than you at chess, you're never gonna win. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's just the buzz. There's no variance. I think poker is so easy accessible. I think it's a game that like within friend circles or whatever. Obviously, like I can't play with Americans and stuff, so it's not easy accessible worldwide to everyone. But I just think that it's a great game, and I always want people who get into poker who treat it as a hobby. Like if you go to the cinema, you spend $50. Like play poker, and if you get a weekend entertainment out of your $10, and you can afford to spend that $10, it's a fantastic game. I love it. I think all platforms, PokerStars included, could do potentially more for newcomers when they come in to make the experience a little bit more enjoyable. It can be quite intimidating on a poker client if you don't know exactly how to navigate.
Right.
I don't know if PokerStars would be happy I said that now. I just like thinking, but I've said this to them, and I think it's something that it's just, it can be quite tricky. But once you're in, and if you find the Twitch communities, I think they're a fantastic place for people to reach out and become members of. And they're like weird little societies that are taking part on the internet. And I just like bringing people into that side, but also being vocal and telling people that, it's a beautiful game if if you gamble money you can afford to lose and treat it as a hobby, but it's not a get rich quick scheme. And
Sure.
it can be bad for people who don't take care of that. And I think PokerStars do a good job of trying to make sure that it could be frustrating for some people that are playing and their limits get, but I think it's important. And I think the way the industry is going to continue to go forward, and regulations are going to not shut poker down or whatever, is that they do look after people who are playing on the client. So for me, it's just being an access point for people that can like find a game that I love and play on the site, which I believe offers the best service and the best security and the place where you'll be looked after the most. So I feel proud if people come after Stars. I feel that I can defend them with integrity and say that, look, this is a company that I want to work with, and I believe that they have the players' best interest at heart. And obviously, not every decision every player will agree with, and I understand, the business has to make money too. But for me, it's just a company that it just always comes down to me for like the security and the product, and I just think that the PokerStars is the best.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly. I mean, I'm not a PokerStars employee or anything, but I can tell you in all my interactions with them, that certainly has proven to be the case with my experiences. So, and you can tell from your tone of voice and the way you're speaking, it certainly is a very genuine thing that you're saying. Talk about regulations a little bit, and you mentioned.
I don't know. I just want to say that I don't know how much I should say about regulations because I'm not. I just no. I just don't want to say anything that, like, if you're about to ask me some sort of trick question and then I say something.
Okay. So up until now, you've been pretty darn phenomenal. It's like you're looking at my screen. I don't know how you predicted a lot of my questions, but this one, no. Okay, you're off on this one. Okay. We're gonna go with regulations on Twitch because we mentioned Kevin Martin. He was actually always a good time to recommend to our listeners and everyone watching. Go ahead and look back at the previous 26 episodes. Kevin Martin was episode number 14. When we had him on, I asked him about Twitch clamping down on the use of copyrighted music on streams. So let's talk about that regulation. What are your thoughts? Has that impacted you? And did you have to kind of purge a lot of content?
Yeah, I delete all my content. Like, I delete everything, like the whole history. I listen to music every single day. I could not dive through the content and find bits of clips that didn't have music over them, and I had to delete pretty much everything. It is what it is. It's not great. I think Twitch did not handle it very well. I believe they needed to offer more support and more tools. But look, if we can't take the content, I understand it in a way. Like, I do. I think it's mostly dinosaurs in that industry that are trying to leech on and get a little bit of extra cash from a platform that's escaping them. My only grievance with it is that they don't offer us a solution to pay. If they are going to take it off us, I don't think we can really cry about it too much, because at the end of the day, it is copyrighted music, is protected by law.
Sure.
There's only so much we can do. YouTube have been zero tolerance on copyrighted music for a long time. Twitch just kind of wrote it out, and like, it is what it is. But I just think that they should offer us a way to pay for it. If you are not going to let us use something, then just offer us a way to pay rather than just take it away. Like, surely you want more money. Surely this is what that is about. You think we are, financially. Now, it might be the case that they offer us a way to pay for it, and it's a price that I'm not willing to pay. If they're like, oh, you can pay us $25,000 a month to listen to Mamma Mia. Like, no, like, I'm not paying $25,000 a month so my mom can have a dance when she's watching the stream as much as I love her. Like, that's not happening. So that's the only grievance I have. I miss listening to the 80s, 70s, 60s tunes on my stream, and those are the ones I really won't mess with. At the moment, I basically don't listen to anything that's not a remix of a song that is on SoundCloud that I believe is protected from copyright. But also, Twitch have now implemented a tool where you can watch streams and then in VODs, the music doesn't play. So at the moment, there is no live strikes. So at the moment, you cannot be copyrighted for when you were streaming live. But I'm not gambling with my channel because PokerStars have told me not to. I would if I was not sponsored by anyone. So they don't want us messing around with that. But like, some of the biggest streamers, like Hikaru, the chess streamer in Gotham Chess, they just listen to whatever they want, and then there's no trace of it in any clips or VODs. But it probably will come down with live striking in the foreseeable future. But hopefully they will find a solution where we can listen to whatever we want, or at least have a very significant library, because the elevator music that they said they put a play like Twitch, was it soundtrack by Twitch, and honestly, man, if I had to listen to that, I tried streaming without music instead of listening to it, and the elevator music that people listen to all day, it makes me just feel like I'm sitting in a dentist's office, and there's no way you can enjoy a stream with that ambience in the background. That is a pathetic excuse for music. So yeah, I would like if they find a solution where we can pay, and it could be on a basis where it depends on the size of your channel.
Perhaps like in an operating theater, like the classics, like Mozart and Beethoven, it's no longer under copyright protection or
That's not
something.
true though. It's
Oh,
not
it
true
is? Even
because
that stuff is like 400 years old stuff?
yeah, okay. So it's the people say this, right? But the issue is that you have to find a non-copyrighted version of someone playing that song. Because
Right.
if some famous musician they do a live opera and they sell that on a CD and you go to Spotify and you search it up, like that's not free.
Good point.
That's
Right.
not free. So I know. I think if someone out there wanted a little idea, would go find good music that is not copyrighted, pay people, or maybe not pay people if it's going to be a small idea, and just open up a Patreon account and only have a private playlist. And when this all hits the fan again in a few months or a few years, and because streamers are idiots, I have so much time to prepare for this. I could have someone looking to find me one song a day for the next 2 years. I'd have 700 songs, which would be a reasonable playlist. But as soon as I got the green light that I could listen to some sort of music again, I stopped worrying about it. So if people got together a little playlist and charged €5 a month and got 1,000 people, there you go. There's your $5,000, 60 grand a year.
Yep.
And then boom, you're in business. And eventually maybe it will get bought off you by someone, or maybe it won't work, but it's not going to cause you that much stress to find one song a day that's actual reasonable music that's not copyrighted.
Well, guys, we have a 300,000 strong Cards Chat community. Fintan's thrown the ball. It's in your court. Whoever wants to go ahead and come up with it, get in touch with me, with Cards Chat. We're going to put it on the forums, on the thread, or with Fintan directly.
This disclaimer, I don't know if live strikes will come in. But if they do, I think you'll have a nice little business plan.
For sure. Well, we're getting to the end of my questions before we get to the community questions, but I just want to ask you, you've mentioned, moving back and forth between Ireland and Malta. Obviously things have been a little bit in disarray. Now you're hopefully settled again. Generally speaking, when things are normal, do you have sort of like a go-to daily routine, or do you plan things in advance? Or are you more of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy?
Oh, I like routine. I get up, I have maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours before I start streaming. I have experimented with getting up like considerably early, much earlier than the stream starts. But if we stream for 8, 9, 10 hours, if you've been awake for 8, 9 hours already, the end of the stream is horrendous. So you're just too tired, and it's hard to provide entertainment or any energy. So I get up for 2 or 3 hours. I'll have breakfast. I will bring my dog for a quick walk. I will work out when I'm in a good schedule. Nothing crazy, but I just try and get some movement in because I don't leave my office then once I'm back in. And I stream for however many hours, study as soon as the stream is done, write in my journal, and then chill with my fiance for an hour. That's basically it. I have a habit app that I have I think like 8 or 9 habits that I try and do every day that are just little things, nothing big. But I need the dopamine hit of ticking it off each day to get my little monkey brain to continue to do the habits, because once you are in certain habits, it can be quite hard to break them.
You mentioned, I'm not a pet person. I think I told you this before we started, but you mentioned a dog, and I know I've seen your cat, Raphael. Is this like a Dr. Dolittle thing? You have a whole farm going on, or just dog and cat?
No, we are currently at capacity for driving across Europe several times a year in the car. A cat and a dog is enough, but I'm obsessed with animals. I love them. I know they're not for everyone, but I know you have kids. I don't have kids, and I feel a house without pets when I come in. Like, I was in this apartment in Malta for 3 weeks on my own before my fiance got here, and it just was dead, empty, lifeless, and I don't know, dogs in particular. I've never cared for cats much, and then I was dating a girl who had a kitten, and it won me over. So my current fiance loves cats, so we got one, and I love it now. And I just love them, man. I know they're not for everyone, but they just bring me so much happiness, and like my dog just. Yeah, that's
a good thing. I mean, like the limit I'd go personally is probably goldfish, and that's so long as someone else feeds the goldfish.
What are you gonna do if your pet? What are you gonna do if your kids love pets though?
It's me or the pet. That's what I always say.
I'll tell you now that my dad would never let me get a dog when I was younger.
And my dad was the same way. He loves dogs, and my mother would never let him get. Now, once we moved out of the house, Yeah, he's with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Ducks.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I just I just wouldn't be able to take that away from a kid
Sure.
if they got to an age where they could potentially look after. But I don't have kids, so it's easier for me to say that right now. I'm sure they'll want to do something that I just have absolutely no intention of letting them do when that day comes. But yeah, I don't know. I just think
Life
they'll
has
prefer
different
to
chapters.
just
May they all be interesting. Just two more questions from me, then we'll get into the
no problem.
community questions.
No
One thing
problem.
we always like to ask our guests here on the Cards Chat podcast, it is the friendliest poker podcast in town. So who would you say is the friendliest poker player you've ever competed against at the Felt?
X-Flix, I always say, is the nicest man in poker.
Hmm.
Doesn't seem to have a bad bone in his body. Vegan, looks after the local ducks. I don't know if he's ever said a bad thing about anyone ever.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would go with X-Flix. That's the
Nice. And the
nicest
real
person.
name for those who aren't following the online stream?
Sorry, excuse me. Felix Schneiders.
Felix,
Felix
sorry.
Schneiders. Felix Schneiders. He's a fellow
Schneiders,
member
there
of.
you go.
I think I
Oh,
pronounced
right,
his name
yeah.
right.
All of a sudden, I was, of course, I know Felix Schneider. I forgot the nickname. It's been a while.
No, sorry. Apologies. He's a fellow member of Team PokerStars,
Yeah.
and he is a German streamer.
Yep.
And every time he raises my channel, I do the worst German impressions known to man. So if I butchered the pronunciation of his name, he will forgive me. I can't even pronounce words in English as an Irishman, so trying to get German pronunciations correct is just not. It's a bit too much for me.
I find the Irish accent very charming. That's just that's just me. And finally, my last question for you, Fintan. Do you have any specific goals, whether it's poker, streaming, podcasting, anything for 2021, or perhaps longer term goals?
I just want to stream as consistently and regularly as I can in terms of numeric or random goals. Not really. I think it's just so hard to control certain things. Like I can't really have a goal to have 2x my average viewers a year from now, because I can put out the content. Like I can't control if people show up. Like I can do my best and put my best effort in and try new things, but like I just think if I put my self-worth into getting those viewers, it's just a slippery slope to go on. And if you try and plan on how much money you're going to make in poker, like no. But in terms of day to day, I want to study poker every day. I want to stream every day. I want to try work out. I want to, be there for my fiance. I want to look out for my dog. Like I just take it day to day and try and enjoy the moment. And if you do little good things every day, you will just get brought to the right places. So my goals are just day to day rather than long term. I understand. Like I think it's cool to have certain long term goals as long as that you're doing little things for it every day. And if you get to it, sure, enjoy it. But if it's out of your control, like you're just going to be a miserable person if you're always wishing for something you don't have rather than enjoying what you do have.
For sure.
In my opinion.
Well, if there's anything that this last year has taught us, it's important to carpe the diem. So you're certainly doing that. I've mentioned a couple times, this is now the segment of the show where we turn to you guys, our Cards Chat community, to see what questions you wanted to ask our guests. Of course, we have a dedicated thread for it on the Cards Chat forums where we announce who the guests are going to be. It gives you guys an opportunity to submit your questions. Our first set of questions is from Crystal, CRSTALS. Thank you so much. You've been a great contributor of questions. We like these. It's a good one. Are you ready, Fintan?
Absolutely.
Okay. Lots of great pros seem to come out of Ireland. What is it about Ireland that contributes to poker players, in your opinion?
What is it about Ireland?
I told you, creative stuff from our.
I know. I'm just trying to think like how deep I could go.
Is it the Guinness?
I don't know if it's the Guinness. It's hard to say. I think obviously we come from big families traditionally, like Catholic families that have had a lot of kids, and a lot of families would play cards many years ago prior to having anything else to do. So you'd be in groups. So I think a lot of families just played card games, and there was just large groups of people. So I think that got passed down throughout generations. Like my mum taught me to play 5-card draw when I was 5 years old, and hated everything to do with gambling. And I always bring this story up, and she says, I didn't teach you that, but she did. She taught me how to play 5-card draw when I was 5, and it just like sparked an interest. And I just I that's the only thing I can really think of. But there's also like, when I was younger, it was a lot of doom and gloom. 2007, 2008 crash. So
Sure.
that era was, you're not going to be able to get a job. The recession was terrible. So I think, people turn to alternative ways to get it. But that's a worldwide thing. That's not really exclusive to Ireland. So I'm not too sure. I think there was a big, Irish people like a drink, and there was a tradition of Irish pub games being poker. And that's where I got my first start in playing live poker, was just in a pub game run by, you might know, Nick O'Hara, who does a lot of the events around the world. I think he's a fantastic TD. And I used to go to his game in a little pub in Rush when I was 18. And that's how I got into it. So I'm not 100% sure what makes them that good, but I'm not 100% sure there's that many good Irish poker players. I didn't want to start with that.
He got the dig in.
In terms of the size of our population, we do okay, but there's not a huge poker community in Ireland. So I wanted to try and answer why it could be before I slated the Irish poker community. There's a few exceptional poker players, and over the years we've had reasonable representation in terms of WSOP final tables and bracelets for the size of us, but don't think there's that many great Irish poker players now. Just being honest.
Not always a pot of gold at the end of every rainbow, is what you said.
No.
Our second question from Crystals is, going back to your biggest cash at EPT Barcelona 2008, is there a hand that sticks out to you that you wish you had back?
Crystal, I never played an EPT event, so I'm afraid to tell you that this is not me. I hate to break it to you. I probably wasn't even of legal age in 2008 when the EPT Barcelona was on. But my biggest live tournament cash was €20,000 in the Irish Open, and I made the worst call I've ever made of my entire life with 7 left. This was before I signed with PokerStars, and if I could go back in time and change that, I don't have many regrets. I missed one penalty when I was 16 years old to win a cup for my team, and I misplayed that hand. And I don't dwell on things that happen. If I have a bad poker session where I played badly, I might dwell on it for a few hours after. Not even if you are like, when I make a bad play in poker, it's usually I have 10 or 15 minutes of hating myself, and then I move on and try not to get it down. But those are two, like the Irish Open hand would be me. There might be a Fintan Gavin is what I would assume.
Perhaps.
Gavin, if I remember correctly, he had a massive score in EPT Barcelona for like $1 million or something. So
Crystals, you cannot mix up your Fintans.
We've had Fintan Gavin's a fantastic character. First introduction to him was at an UKBT when I was like 19, and no one really understood Irish names, I don't think. So we were telling everyone that every Fintan was related, and we were very, very, very drunk.
And your last names are all Murphy or O'Hara or something like that.
Or O'Donnell or something.
Well, thank you for answering the question that I think Crystal's meant to ask.
No,
Excuse me. We'll do 2 more here from Acid Burn FX. Love that name. Love that screen name. These are interesting. Very thought-provoking here. So number 1 here, Fintan. What would you want written on your headstone?
I'm not I'm agnostic, so I don't care. I don't care. Whatever my loved ones would like to put there, if it makes them feel a little bit better, it doesn't bother me.
Ooh, nice.
It doesn't bother me one little bit. I mean, maybe just don't get mad at things you can't control and enjoy yourself. You're not here for a long time, maybe. But if they wanted to put something else, and if there was an afterlife and I was looking down, I certainly wouldn't be upset.
I like that. Very, very thought-provoking answer. It gives me food for thought. I like that one. And our final question for you: if you could be someone for a day, not yourself, who would that person be and why?
I will try and think of someone, but I will be honest that I don't have any interest in being anyone else. I'm very happy to be myself. But when you say someone else, do you mean I would control their body, or I would feel their thoughts? Because that would change it for me.
I think it kind of goes hand in hand. A man, a woman, a world leader, a celebrity, a sports star.
If, for instance, Biden's the current president of America. If you say I become Biden, am I Fintan hand in Biden's body walking around the White House, or am I Biden? like, am I actually Biden? Do you know
I
what I
think
mean?
you're Fintan hand, but experiencing the world through their eyes and their position.
I'd be whoever's in charge of Area 51 and go look and see what the crack is with the aliens.
That's an amazing answer and a great high note on which to finish the show. Thanks so much to everyone who sent in questions for Fintan. Just a friendly reminder again to everyone out there in the Cards Chat community. We'd love to see you submit your questions for future podcast guests in the dedicated thread on the forums. And of course, please be sure to give us a good review on iTunes and spread the word via your social media channels if you like the show. Fintan, before we let you go, anything else you'd like to tell our listeners?
No, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. And yeah, just enjoy yourself. That's all I'll say.
Awesome. Well, Fintan, thank you again very much. Thank you all for tuning in once again to another episode of Cards Chat. I'm Robbie Strazynski. You can follow me on Twitter at CardPlayerLife, and I wish you all a wonderful day.